Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works, where each week we take some from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
Hello, my name's Ben.
And we're joined once again by returning guest Laura.
Hello.
I don't know why I keep saying guest, because she's a regular on the show. She's a regular on
She's
the
a host,
podcast.
David.
She's just a normal
one of
host.
us.
I should just
a
say,
regular person.
I don't know if, but here's the thing. Adam started jumping in during the name, but he just jumps in and he says Adam. Whereas I don't, but then
Adam's a guest.
But yeah, but he's a guest.
Sorry, Adam.
But he's a very
You're still
precocious
a guest.
So I don't know. I feel like Laura not making that presumption.
If we have a tier list of people on this podcast, I'm at the top, and then we got David.
Yeah. Wait,
then
what?
we got-
Sorry. Wait, what? Hang on. Why are you above me?
And then we got Laura, and then we got David. I mean, Adam.
Well, David, then Adam again.
We could put
I'm on the
David
list
down there,
twice.
yeah.
I don't know why I'm below you. That's fine. Look, we've been talking about Legacy, and I thought, because we didn't have time to watch the anime that one of our Patreons suggested, what we do instead is we'd look at the latest film from DC and try and assess and work out just what the fuck it is they're trying to do with their franchises moving forward, and if there's anything that we can learn from their latest offering, because this week we're talking about the legacy of Shazam.
Shazam! Laura, you gotta say it now.
Shazam.
Hey,
Wow.
we all did it.
Didn't have the
It'd be
same
great if we all
enthusiasm.
turned superheroes now.
That would
be
be
great if I got really buff.
a really jacked. It'd be a
Man,
weird twist
it'd
for
be
this
so
show.
good.
Look, obviously Shazam is a 2019 American superhero film based on the DC Comics character of the same name. It was produced by New Line Cinema and distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures, and it's the 7th installment of the DC EU.
Can we not call it that?
Why is
There is not.
DCE?
There
Because
is
they
no,
haven't officially named it.
There is no DCEU. It's just a smattering of loosely
It's just
related
a bunch
films.
of films that they have.
Well, they're trying to do the same thing as
They
Marvel.
tried,
but
and
not
they
the same
failed
scale
at
in any way.
every step.
I think
Except for this step. This step is a good
it's.
step.
Well, did you guys see Aquaman?
No.
Because it was
Why
quite.
don't I watch
Because it was
that?
pretty good.
No. I don't watch
I'll
garbage.
probably watch it at some point
I don't
when
watch
it's out on a streaming
garbage
service
about the
because
worst
that's what I
superhero.
do with movies that I don't care enough to see in theaters.
That's
worst
fair.
superhero.
It's as good as this.
It's the worst superhero.
Oh, Aquaman.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's the highest grossing
Talks-
DC film of all time.
That's really sad.
which is saying something.
Wow.
Like,
more than
Really?
Wonder Woman?
Did they get that because of the casting?
Aquaboy.
Like what?
I don't know. They just did.
Jason Momoa is not a
Look,
great
he
he's
was in Game of Thrones.
they made him.
doesn't-
They
that
look,
makes it
People
worse.
care about him because he was in Game of Thrones.
they gave him a role that suits him, and he just did that.
What, the worst superhero?
The big dumb boy. Yeah, I don't know. It's whatever. When I hear
I
talk,
kind of like blonde Aquaman. He's kind of silly.
I like the OG. If they gave him scales and a blonde hair.
I don't
and a
know what to
trident.
tell you.
He has a trident.
I didn't decide to make him Jason Momoa. You guys are coming at me like it was my choice. Look, well, let's get into the summary. I don't even know what even to think about this film. So before we do that, let's do a quick round table. Ben, what'd you think?
I liked it. I think it's good.
Yeah,
I think it's...
you prefer it over DC's other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
What
I
about
think-
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I think it was better.
I think it is. I don't know.
it's a better film.
Wonder Woman's like this is like the Ant-Man of the DCEU. where
That's a
it's
good
just
way of
like
putting
it's just
it.
like a
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
like
Perfectly
whereas
fine.
like Wonder Woman's like it's the Captain America of the DC
yeah.
films. So it's like they're
So
just
where like this is kind of weird and left field and like
and it's like it's on its own. Like it doesn't.
yeah.
That's,
It-
it
it doesn't rely on the other films.
right, and it could have almost been directed by Edgar Wright, but it wasn't.
It could have been like
Yeah, it's not like Wonder Woman has to be in like the
yeah, it literally starts with her
Like-
and Batman talking. Like it's
Justice League has to
Yeah.
have Wonder Woman in it, but like
This could be anything.
Shazam is just like he can just do
this
his own
feels
thing.
like what the early X-Men films feel like, where they're like they're Marvel, yeah, but it's like they're not really Marvel. They're kind of on their own.
Hold on to that thought, because I
Oh,
have
no.
a thing that's going to blow your fucking mind
Okay,
later.
sure. Anyway, Laura.
Yeah,
round
Laura, what'd you
table.
think?
Yeah, I had fun. Like
Yep.
wasn't my favorite thing ever, but I had fun.
Okay. I am much the same. I thought it was fine. I had a great viewing experience. I went by myself to the theater, which is my favorite thing to do. And I took in a flask of not alcohol, and I got myself a big
What did you take in a flask of then?
rum.
That's alcohol.
For the purposes of for legal purposes, it was not rum. It was
okay.
water. I took in and I had myself a pretty relaxed evening seeing Shazam. I thought it was okay. There's some stuff in it that I want to unpack that is either really deep or really dumb. And I think it's a really interesting I think it's an interesting yardstick for what DC are looking to do in the future, but I don't necessarily know if it achieves the ambition that it set out to in kind of establishing itself as that unique force in this
Jesus
universe.
Christ, David, you really we just asked you what you thought of the movie. You don't have to...
Okay.
Definitely, I would say our viewing experience was definitely not that. We went to see it with
whole group
both of my
people.
sisters and both of their partners.
And then like also just like an additional friend.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we went to a cinema that had reclining
Oh
seats.
my
Oh
god.
my god,
Yeah, Ben
they
was-
were comfortable.
Yeah,
Ben
I
was
was going on
flexing on
about
me.
it.
Yeah,
and then
I-
at the end, someone dropped a ring.
Okay.
A very important ring.
Well, I guess in that case, what better way to get into the summary? I don't know how to segue from that. Don't drop rings, people.
We spent like 10 minutes looking for it.
Yeah,
We found it,
but
but
that's a waste of 10 minutes of your life. Okay. In 1974, upstate New York, young Thaddeus Savannah is arguing with his father and brother during a car trip where he is transported to the Rock of Eternity, a magic temple hidden in another dimension. He meets the ancient wizard Shazam, the last of the Council of Seven Wizards, who has spent centuries searching for a new champion who is pure of heart, after the previous champion went mad, releasing the 7 deadly sins upon the world. Thaddeus is tempted by the sins, entrapped in statues, and is deemed unworthy and banished back to Earth. Upon returning, he makes a scene trying to go back, which causes the car to swerve and crash. His father ends up crippled, and his older brother blames the incident on him. In present-day Philadelphia, foster kid Billy Batson runs afoul of the law while searching for his birth mother, and is placed in a group home run by Victor and Rosa Vasquez with 5 other foster kids: Mary Brumfield, Pedro Penea, Eugene Choi, Darla Dudley, and Freddie Freeman, Billy's roommate and superhero enthusiast. Meanwhile, an adult Savannah, embittered by his rejection as a boy, discovers a way to return to the Rock of Eternity. There, he steals the Eye of Sin, becoming the Sin's vessel, and besting the wizard before returning to the Earth to kill his father and brother. At school, Billy saves Freddy from bullies and is chased into the subway, where Shazam magically summons Billy, chosen as the new champion. By calling Shazam's name, Billy is transformed into an adult superhero now endowed with the wizard's name. Thanking Billy, Shazam the wizard turns to dust, leaving behind his staff. Returning home, Freddy helps Billy explore the extent of his newfound powers: electricity manipulation, invulnerability, super strength, hyperspeed, higher intelligence, and flight. Freddy's video of Shazam testing his powers becomes a viral sensation, and Billy begins skipping school to use his powers for money and fame. Seeing Champion Shazam save a boss on the news, Savannah easily defeats him and demands he surrender his powers, but he transforms back into Billy and escapes in the crowd. From the news, Savannah deduces Billy's identity and abducts Freddy to find Billy. At the Vasquez home, the other children also deduce Billy's secret and tell him they have found his mother, who lives nearby. Billy meets his mom, learning she abandoned him when she was a single teenage mother. Savannah calls Billy, having taken his foster siblings hostage, and Billy as Shazam agrees to give Savannah his powers to spare the life of his family. Savannah and Shazam travel to the Rock of Eternity, where Savannah takes the wizard's staff, but the siblings follow and attack Savannah. Shazam uses the distraction to stun Savannah and realizes that Savannah loses his powers when all the sins leave his body. Savannah consequently pursues Shazam and his siblings to a winter carnival, unleashing the sins upon the crowd there within. As Wrath battles Shazam, the other sins capture his family, demanding his powers. However, when Savannah recalls the sins, Shazam uses the opportunity to take the staff and stun Savannah once again. Remembering the wizard's words, Billy uses the staff to share his powers, transforming his siblings into adult superheroes like him. Shazam breaks the staff and battles Savannah, while his siblings distract the sins. Shazam baits envy out of Savannah's body, leaving Savannah powerless, and takes him back to the Eye of Sin, which recaptures all of the sins. Billy and his family are hailed as heroes, and Billy embraces his foster family as his true family and home. Returning the Eye and the sins to their prison, Billy and siblings realize now the vacant Rock of Eternity can be their new hideout. Later,
Kick-ass, man.
Later, Billy arrives at school in his Shazam form to have lunch with his siblings, revealing he has invited Superman, much to Freddy's joy. In a mid-credit scene, the imprisoned Savannah is approached by Mr. Mind with a proposal for claiming he can give Savannah his powers back.
Mastermind.
In a post-credit scene,
Mastermind? Okay.
Freddy tests whether Shazam's champion form has fish telepathy like Aquaman,
Yep.
which Billy dismisses as stupid. I like it. It's fun. I like that. It's a little fun, like a little
The
Aquaman.
worst superhero, exactly.
Yeah, it's fun. That's a fun one. Yeah, what jumps out at you in that? Because that's a weird story, right?
What jumps out as me is that that's like it's like a 2-hour long film, and
That's a fucking wild ride,
and
man.
like not a lot really happens.
Like, yeah.
There's a lot of time dedicated
Mind
to.
you, this film is set in like present day. How did it take someone that long to film the weird shit?
Well, actually, what we see at the start of
To-
Justice League, Superman's got a kid's filming and being like, "What's your favorite part about humanity?"
Yeah,
like,
no, I know, but
Sorry,
like
to
the
film-
when like they're taken to like the rock of whatever it's called.
Mhm.
Like how did it take them that long for someone to pull out a phone and film
I see
the
what you
weird
mean.
shit, you know?
that's a good point. It's very
Oh,
chronicle
right.
in that way.
I mean, I suppose just I don't know if you just like
It's a good point, but like
I
from a
don't know.
universe continuity
It's-
perspective, I think they're less concerned with that stuff now. It shows, and I think that's why this film works. Is they weren't trying to be like, but how does this work in a world with Batman? Like they were just trying to tell a good story.
yeah. Well, I felt the like similarities to like the Marvel TV shows
Mhm.
where it's like yeah they're in a post Avengers world, but the story that they're telling is just it only really cares about like such a small area where you get little tidbits of like the extended universe where in this
Yeah.
you get Superman, you
It's
get
like
the
yeah,
Batarang.
Superman exists in this.
Yeah,
film.
and like
Yeah.
the Batarang
he
is
makes
there.
a cameo at the end, but like
Right.
he's not
Or
a
at least
part
a man
of it.
with
Like,
a very
him existing doesn't have any bearing on the story, which is good.
yeah.
I think that's a crucial thing. Is it's not the story doesn't rely on the existence of those other heroes for it to function.
Yeah.
yeah.
It sort of in a way relies on the existence of heroes, and this being a world where heroes are a thing. And
Right, because it's a
accepted.
comic book film.
Well, it's like
Well, and also because Freddy being like obsessed with superheroes and being the superhero expert is like, I know all this stuff about
But,
all
like,
these
the-
heroes and all their powers and stuff.
yeah,
Right.
the story still works except for the bit where Superman appears. The story still works if this was a universe where Freddy just likes comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the Batarang he has is like a replica, and like
Yeah.
the bullet
Right.
he has is like a set. It's like from like
Exactly.
the Superman film. Like the film still works as him being. It's like, oh, you're superpowered. You have this power. You have this power, and like it still works. It doesn't rely on like
Right.
Batman existing.
Because
It's
Logan
just-
kind of does a similar thing where there's comic books in that universe, but they're not necessarily accurate.
That's weird because it literally has X-Men comics
Well, no,
in Logan.
But that's what I mean, though, is it's like you could do the same thing where there, because in this universe there are comic books based on
Yeah.
these superheroes.
Oh, they
Yeah,
did do
there's a
that.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
like
Gets-
Justice League comics.
It gets
and shit.
weird. I don't know.
I'm not a fan of that.
I don't
didn't like
love-
it in Logan. I don't like it here.
I don't love it. Let's talk quickly about the structure because, okay, when we talk a lot about like hero's journey, arch plots, and like narrative and valence shifts and stuff.
Yeah.
This film, and I don't say this in like, I'm not trying to be like clever or coy. This film is like literally the hero's journey, and I don't mean like, oh, it follows the hero's journey. I mean it's like it literally is.
Right.
Like word for word. I want to read you what
It's
Joseph
like
Campbell
beat for beat.
well, not even, but like it. The way that Joseph Campbell described it in the
Yeah.
preface to the hero's journey
Oh, okay.
is this film. It's like someone picked it up and went page 3 and went, yeah, we could do that. I'm gonna read you this quote, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah. Like, it's fucking wild to me. This is from A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, which is where the kind of idea originated. He didn't necessarily popularize the universality of the journey itself, but he was one that first pitched it. So he says, I quote, this is his pitch for the hero's journey. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons upon his fellow man. That's literally this fucking story.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I know that often we're like, oh, it reinvents the hero's journey. Billy goes from the regular world into a fucking fantastic place. He has a great victory over evil, and he gives people powers when he gets back.
Yeah.
That's his fucking story, and I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That someone was like, oh yeah, we could just do it literally, and it still works.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it just as like it's a good standalone superhero film because of that. Like I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and they have like 2 kids, and they were like, I like mentioned that like on the Anzac Day, it's like, yeah, I'll probably go to a dawn service and I'm gonna watch Avengers Endgame because that comes out on the same day.
Well, you're gonna be tired.
Yeah, it's gonna suck.
You need to have like an
You can
afternoon.
have a nap.
I'll have a nap.
You need to have a nap.
And they were like, oh, like I want to take my kids to see a film. Like, should I take them to see that? And I was like, well, are they super into Marvel? And they're like, yeah, not really. And I was like, yeah, it's
maybe
probably
not.
a bit too much then. And I was like, I was like, oh, but you should take him to see Shazam.
Yeah.
She was like, what's that? And I'm like, well, it's like a superhero film, but it's like it's really good,
It's really
and it's
chill.
like you can just watch it on its own.
Yeah,
And like for me, that's like such like a Spider-Man 1, like Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1. It's such a even like a to a lesser degree, like something like Homecoming.
no, stick with the Sam Raimi thing because
because it is definitely it's
it
just,
has a lot of that. But the other
even like down to the sort of the where a big part of the story is him finding his powers,
And
whereas
it's got
as opposed to Homecoming, which is sort of the modern Spider-Man origin story,
I would
or the Amazing Spider-Man, where it's like he kind of gets his powers really quickly, and then because everyone knows what Spider-Man does, the film doesn't really take a lot of time to explain what it is.
The thing that I would say is that Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 is more interested in, as he gets them, how does he learn what he should do with them.
Yeah,
That's what. Whereas I think like Homecoming is like, how is he a superhero? Whereas I think this is the same. It's like, now that you have them, do you give in to temptation or do you?
yeah,
Because Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, he does the same thing where he gets the boxing stuff. Like he's doing like the wrestling.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
very much the same parallel. We'll get to that later because
Yeah.
this film is.
David, I gotta
Spider-Man one.
ask.
Yeah.
Were you at all familiar with Shazam in the comics? Or-
I'm familiar with Shazam as part of the ensemble of the Justice League. I've never read a standalone Shazam
Okay.
comic story. My entire exposure to him is through the lens of
Okay.
Grant Morrison's Justice League runs. But
So did you know anything about Mr. Mind?
I don't know Mr. Mind. I still don't know anything about Mr. Mind, really.
I googled it. It's fucking insane.
I don't really know.
Yeah, all I know is I watched a comic tropes video and I was like, okay, he's a legit thing.
I'm not familiar with that. I know that in the current run or in the New 52 that Shazam's family are also Shazam. Like that stuff I was kind of aware of.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm aware of him as a character is that he's interesting because he's a bit like Spider-Man, which is interesting you drew that parallel because both of those people are characters, they're kids trying to be superheroes.
Yeah,
And in the comics at least, Peter Parker, when he joins the Avengers, is trying to be Captain America. He's like, that's my hero, that's my idol.
He's trying to be Iron Man.
Well, in the films, he's trying to be Iron Man. In the comic books, he's trying to be Captain America. Because Captain America is the virtuous one. He's the good dude. And I don't know. It's the same thing here. It's like you're trying to be Superman. You're trying to be this character that is wholesome. And but then it's that question of like, well, do you do that or do you give into temptation?
Yeah, well, they even draw that parallel really well in this film because a lot of pretty much every like first like attempt they make to find what powers he have, it's like, can you fly? It's like, can you fly like Superman? And then it's like, have you got the laser eyes? And it's like, and it's only like, only accidentally do they find out that he's got super speed because it's like, who gives a shit about the Flash?
Because they never check.
Because this Flash isn't a cool one. And it's like, so.
Is he rich? No, he can't be Batman.
Yeah.
Like, But
is he resistant to fire?
Is he resistant
Probably.
to? Yeah, is he retardant to flames? Can he punch a bunch of men and have braces? Like
he's got super strength. They're like, all right, we got that one.
Get that big tick on that boy. Yeah. But I don't know. It is curious to me that even though all of those elements are present, it is very much like an early 2000s comic book hero story, and that's fine. My concern is the same thing I have with Sam Raimi's films, where in about 5 years from now, how much is this going to have aged? How much is it going to feel? Because it is very camp and cheesy, and it's like the power of family saves the day, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But one thing I've noticed about those Sam Raimi films is they feel cheesy, and they feel overwritten, and they feel like they were hammed up to an extent that...
Oh, you mean that scene that everyone takes the piss out of?
No, because I defend that scene to my death, because I think that's brilliant. The scene that Laura's referring to, quick aside, is the scene where Peter Parker in the third Spider-Man film is strutting about in like a suit.
We're talking about Spider-Man 3, right?
Finger gunning girls. And the reason I think that scene works brilliant, this is a total tangent, and I will fight anyone in this fucking scene. The reason that scene is brilliant is the symbiote jumping into Peter Parker's brain and saying, what does nerdy Peter Parker think cool dudes do?
Oh, yeah, no.
And he thinks
I 100%
cool,
agree. Yeah,
they wear cool suits, all the chicks dig them, and they're like strutting down the street being cool.
Yeah.
Because Peter Parker's a fucking science nerd who doesn't know any better.
That scene is fantastic.
That
It's
scene
hilarious.
is genius
so well made,
and a pivotal part of what could have made that film a good film. The film is terrible, but I will defend that scene to my fucking grave. Come fight me, don't at me. But this film very much has that vibe, except that there is this element in this film which is kind of weird, which is this like horror element in it. It's kind of, there's a few jump scares. The stuff in the Rock of Eternity starts off as a bit spooky. I don't know. It's got a.
I don't know about jump scares. There was no point where I really jumped.
Yeah, no, there's no point
Maybe
where Laura
just
jumped.
That's fine.
Like I didn't scare Ben at any point in this film.
I mean, the scene...
Not as bad as Captain Marvel.
No, I did scare you guys in
The
Captain Marvel.
scene where the bad guy goes to the boardroom meeting and murders everyone there.
That's
A bit heavy.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's probably the most.
Yeah.
That's probably the heaviest part of this film, and I think that's.
The sins are really creepy.
I just think
Yeah.
tonally it manages to be. So Patrick and I were talking about this earlier, and I think one of the things DC did well was trying to make comic books a little bit grimmer and darker. The execution
Right.
was the problem, and what I like here is that they've retained some of those elements of grimness and darkness, but they've let it still be a fun, silly story.
Well, I think the biggest reason why, for me at least, I think it works so well is how well a job, and I don't know his name, but the actor for adult Shazam,
Zachary Levi.
right, like how good a job he does portraying an adult version of a kid who has turned into a superhero. It is so believable.
It
I-
really
And
is,
like
actually.
it's the kind of thing where when you're watching it, you don't see it as, oh, he's like an old guy now. He's just like big and buff anymore. Like you still see it as the same kid who isn't the best actor in the film, but you still see it as this kid who's just now big and buff.
I didn't buy it.
You didn't buy it? Dude, I bought it whole island sinker.
I totally
Oh,
did.
I 100% bought it. How could you not buy it? I didn't buy. I didn't buy the others.
No, what I
Like
did.
the other older versions.
What I bought the fact that he was an adult. He's exactly what happened if a kid became an adult superhero. Thing I didn't buy is that he was the same character as Billy. Billy Batson in that story is like a little bit more brooding and has a bit more edge to him.
Maybe for me,
I know that there's a throwaway line in it where it's like the reason he acts like way more camp and extreme is like because he's like way more smart, so he realizes that being brooding. There's a throwaway line that solves that for me.
right?
But I found it constantly distracting that he was because Billy Batson in this is a really interesting character, even though some of the acting isn't great. Like he's interesting, and then when he's Shazam, he loses some of the depth that I thought was going to make that a compelling kind of. How do you act into this superhero role when you do have some of that darker stuff going on?
Well, I think it's for me
You know
at
what I mean?
least the sort of the way they blocked it out in terms of like the narrative in the sense that when he turns into Shazam, he stays Shazam for a very long time.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't know how to turn back for one, and then they don't give him a lot of opportunities to turn back like fairly early, so you get to have a lot of time with Shazam and Freddy, which I think. Like that interaction between those two characters is I think it's quite good.
It sells the story to me.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly because of what's his face playing Shazam. I think
Zachary Levi.
he very much pulls the best out of the actor for Freddy.
Yeah.
Because I think when it's Freddy, I mean, it may just because I found like the broody Batson a bit
He's-
obnoxious.
I would like to buy your finest beer, please.
But that's the thing, right? Like but that's not what Billy would say. That's where I'm getting at. Is like I don't think Billy would ever say that, regardless of whether or not he's Shazam. That's the bit I didn't buy because he's he's a
okay.
kid from like the wrong side of the tracks. He would know what to say in that situation. That was where I had a bit of dissonance. But
Well, for me, like when he comes off the subway system and he's like walking through and he's this big buff boy and he's like confused, I was like immediately reminded of like the Born Beautiful Yesterday trope.
Yeah.
Where it's just like they're very much doing like a fish out of water kind of reversal of the trope where he's getting like leered at by a lot of women because he's wearing like spandex. He's this big beefy
he's
boy.
jacked, yeah.
And it's like, I was like, oh, like I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. It's very much like a Born Beautiful Yesterday thing. And I think they kept,
Yeah, it keeps going.
they kept that with his character throughout most of those early phases.
I can see that.
And
Yeah.
I think for me it worked because I was just like, this is a interesting and funny inversion of a relatively disgusting and sexist trope.
Yeah.
I was like, this is good and wholesome. I can get
It's like,
behind
oh,
it
yeah,
because
it's just a kid, and it kind of
it's just so ridiculous.
It brings home the point that he's just a kid, and maybe he hasn't done some of these more adult things.
Right. I agree. I'm totally with you there.
I think once he becomes Shazam, Billy Batson's character becomes a bit more believable in terms of like his broodiness. I think before that, it's like it's kind of like confusing what he is as a character. You're like, he's really smart because he's able to like trick these cops. So he's like obviously very charismatic and he's very like clever and able to weasel his way around social situations. And he's tracking down his mother, which obviously takes a lot of like smarts and resources and like know-how. But then it's once he becomes Shazam and he's just like, oh, the power of family, he kind of mellows out as a character. He's not suddenly solving fucking crimes and shit.
Well, you're right.
He's not breaking into police cars, hacking into their
Well,
fucking
but-
systems,
but-
and scanning for specific
Okay,
names.
yeah.
Like that introduction to a character was just like, oh, he's like a young Batman, basically, where
But
he's
then-
just
but
this
then-
hacker bastard.
But then what happens is that I think that's the difference, though, right? Is what happens is he has a family that he can rely on. That's what changed. That's the difference between him and Batman.
I agree. Yeah, I think
Batman isolates himself
Yeah.
in pursuit of that stuff, whereas he's finally able to relax and be like, I can rely on these people.
yeah,
And that's a fucking wholesome message for a superhero film.
yeah.
I think. I wanted to touch on this. Actually, you know what? Let's do this first, and then I'll kind of wrap my point up about the Sam Raimi stuff and everything like that. Do you guys think this is a better superhero origin story than Captain Marvel?
Ooh.
That's a hard one.
It's an interesting question because they're so different, even though they both tackle the same kind of idea, which is setting up a superhero, setting up a villain. One of them's in an established universe, the other one's DC that is
Captain
trying to...
America was early though.
I said Captain Marvel.
Oh,
Captain Marvel.
sorry.
Brie
I heard,
Larson's
I
Captain
heard
Marvel.
Captain, and then the rest just went. Captain
Marvel.
Oh.
Captain Marvel.
Right, not Captain Marvel, who is actually
Fucking
Shazam.
idiot.
Right, okay.
Yes. Not Captain Marvel, who is the character Shazam.
Who is Shazam, but Captain
Yes.
Marvel.
Captain Marvel, like, DC's license to the name Captain Marvel lapsed and they had to start using Shazam, and then the name of the character
For
just became
good,
Shazam.
which is
Yeah.
good because it's a fucking scumbag move.
Well, in Marvel's defense, they got around it by making it Marvel, which is
Well,
great.
which is hilarious,
yeah,
but
well,
still
Then they
I
stuck
think
with it.
scummy on DC part.
Initially, they were making a character called Captain Marvelous, who would be a competitor to Superman.
Superman, that was the
and-
idea. Yeah, and then it became a woman, and everything got better after that.
Anyway,
just like
question.
most things, do you think it's a better a superhero origin story than Captain Marvel?
Laura.
I don't know. This is, do you know what I mean?
See, there's things that I
They're
really enjoy
completely
about Captain
different.
Marvel, because it's like, you know,
They're so
Captain
different.
Marvel kind of being the female perspective, sort of, and like having that thing where it's like her experiences being really shaped by growing up as a woman and not being able to do all the things that men can do and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Ugh.
I don't think
It's complicated, but hey,
I don't think Captain Marvel is an origin story. There, I said it.
Uh,
Because it's not. It's not
fine.
an origin story. It's a.
Well,
It's like a. I don't know.
I mean,
it's
kind of about her growing
It's the
into
Bucky's-
like the persona of
it's the Bucky
Captain
story
Marvel.
from
Like,
the Winter Soldier,
she's not a superhero before that film. Like,
which is not an origin story.
she's powerful. Like, she's powerful the whole way through.
Yeah.
But it's about her growing into that, like,
mate, there's literally a scene where she
heroic
gets her powers.
stuff. Like, it's her growing into becoming a hero and like being like.
I
One
don't
of the
think it's
good
an
guys.
origin story.
You fucking cop out.
I don't-
Do you think
Okay.
it's do you if you had to, okay, you know what?
But I'll answer your question. No, I think Captain Marvel's better. Like it's more interesting.
I think Captain Marvel's a
This-
better I think Captain Marvel's a better film. But,
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
But as a way to set up a character, I think that Shazam, well, as a way to set up a character in a universe that is not as well established as an
yeah,
origin
if
story.
if you're trying to establish
Yeah.
a character from ground zero, from like kind of like Spider-Man, like Captain America, which is where I thought this comparison was going, like an Iron Man, from a perspective of regular human becomes superhero, because Captain Marvel starts with alien society on a non-human planet with her
Yeah.
with her powers.
And the normal human stuff is like flashbacks.
Yeah, but that's just-
But even then, that's just like a way
It's-
of telling
that's just
that story,
external-
but kind of in reverse.
Right, but that's just external genre setting. It's still the hero's journey. It's the same plot.
I'm not saying it's not a hero's journey, but when you're comparing a very traditional superhero origin story,
Yeah.
which is, you know, your Batmans, your Superman to a degree,
Yeah, I
your
was gonna say Man of Steel, kinda.
yeah, not really, because he's also an alien, but
Green Lantern is like the typical touch point that
Yeah.
I use.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
the
for
most
sure.
it's the most
Flash.
the most
You know,
typical.
you're comparing that, which is a very tried and true. This is just a regular Joe with a regular job, and some mysterious thing happens, and he's bestowed
he gets a
with
ring or
powers.
there's an accident. or
Yeah.
whatever.
Whereas Captain Marvel she's an established, powerful figure in like a fucking like special operatives unit where she has powers, she just doesn't use them. And then she finds out more about her past and realizes that she's been fighting for the bad guys this whole
Well,
time.
I mean,
and her,
the her being a normal human and like having to gain her powers still happens. It just happens in a different order in the film.
Laura's right. I know what you're saying. I know the point you're making, which is that the comparison is difficult. That's why I'm interested in the comparison, because what it speaks to me is that the point I'm trying to get at is these films try and do very different things. One of them is trying to set up a character in a universe in a way that is interesting in a universe that's done it 10 times. Marvel is trying to do an origin story in a way that is still interesting after we've seen 5 versions of Iron Man 1.
So what I feel is that with Captain Marvel, her interaction with like the normal world is more of a downfall for her character. That's like the major conflict.
What do you mean by that?
Like when she starts investigating about her past and she realizes that all these memories that she has. I should have rewatched Captain Marvel for this question, bloody hell.
Sorry, I've kind of snuck that.
You know,
one
like
in.
when she meets her, you're not really presented much of a story between her and her best friend. You're kind of just shown the aftermath of their interactions when she thinks that she's died and she's come back. Whereas with Shazam, it's like he joins this family at his lowest point. Well, not his lowest point. He joins the family at a low point.
Yep.
And then they build him up, and then there's a lowest point. And then, like, the real world for him is more of a crescendo, whereas for Captain Marvel, the real world is like oh, Jesus Christ, I've been on the wrong side this whole time.
That's such a good point.
And when Shazam fights for good, when Shazam does a good thing, he fights for the real world. He fights for his family. Whereas when like Captain Marvel fights, she's like fighting against an alien invasion.
That is such an
like
Well, it's not like an alien invasion per se.
No.
You know, the final point doesn't end up being the alien invasion. It ends up being save this race of aliens from extinction.
Ben's kind of right though, and I agree, but Ben's right in the sense that the thesis of the films are so different. You're totally right. Like the way that those characters are written, and I see exactly what you mean now. In that Captain Marvel as a character, Carol Danvers as a character is fighting against something, whereas Shazam is like fighting for the reclamation or for the development of his maturity. That's my mug.
All right. Good to know.
I totally agree. That's a really interesting point. That was what I was trying to get to, because I knew you fucking had something in your brain about it, and I just wanted to find
Right.
out what it was.
You're like that teacher that like keeps asking.
He's like a good teacher. It's almost
I
like
just-
he's had some good teachers.
It's almost like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try and wrap all this up for you in relation to the Sam Raimi stuff, in relation to everything we've talked about. I'm gonna probably blow your lid.
All right.
Okay.
I will
So-
prepare my lid for blowing.
It's either gonna. This is my meta reading. It's either gonna work really well or it's gonna be terrible. So
I'm very sorry.
I don't
about
want you to
that, Colin.
tense. I'm gonna cut that out.
All
That's not keeping in the edit. So as we talked about before, like the weird horror thing is kind of in the story a little bit. It was a bit more in Aquaman with the trench people that were fucking creepy.
Didn't watch it.
It's fine. A note that I want to point out for you is that the director of Shazam is David Sandberg, who is best known for directing Lights Out, one of the best horror films of recent memory, and Annabelle Creation, a Conjuring spin-off. So this is a horror director, and DC keeps doing this. They keep hiring horror directors to direct their superhero film.
Which is odd, but
It's
sure.
weird. I
Yeah.
don't get it. The other thing that I want to point out is that the story itself is a collaboration between Darren Lemke and Henry Gayden. Gayden, you'll be interested to know, worked on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3.
Ooh, Spider-Man 3. Not 1 or 2. 3.
The more you think about it, the more it
Okay.
starts to make sense.
Yeah.
The films have a lot in common. And while Gayden was only a PA for that film, it's clear that Raimi's bombastic, like super earnest, like courage and family and like everything is the
Yeah.
central thesis of our
I mean,
story.
I kind of love that. It's kind of sincere.
It's sincere, but
love.
the issue is if you do it well, it ages brilliantly. And if you do it well and you have a great message about your
You got a
film,
Spider-Man 2.
you got Spider-Man 2 is like a fabulous version of that. Whereas you look at some older stuff like X-Men 1 doesn't necessarily work. X-Men 3 doesn't hold up. There
Most
is-
of the X-Men films don't do it very well.
there is a way to do that which feels like it's a relatable and gonna sort of stand the test of time. My concern with this film is that there are elements of it, like the family stuff works, but the idea of the solution to your film being, I have to trust my family, but now also they're superheroes.
Whee!
Like, a better film would have gone, I have to trust my family because they're ordinary.
Yeah.
That would have been a much more, for me and as a writer, like that would have been, so, like my editor, Aaron, would have been like the first thing in that draft of that script. He
Yeah.
would have said,
No,
why
you
are they
can't-
super?
You can't transform.
The point you have to make
Yeah.
is that Billy can only save the day when he becomes himself again, because the point of the story is that it's about who you are underneath, not what you do that defines you, because that is what DC is about. DC is about those fucking morals and those lessons. And if Christopher Nolan's films taught DC anything, it's that the way you make earnest films that stand the test of time is you have a lesson which is consistent with the actual source material and the film you're making. And this, for me, is a film that is so close to hitting that mark, but they kind of get to that endpoint and they go, the comic book, everyone is, the family's Shazam's, everyone's a Shazam.
Yeah.
Like, it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like,
in the comic book, Shazam has a bunch of sidekicks.
better have
and
those.
Also, Mr. Mind needs to be a thing.
Right, it'd be
so
like-
remember that caterpillar from the beginning?
Right, it'd be like during that fight with fucking Superman and Zod, which is not very good, but like in that fight, if like fucking Superdog turned up, and you're like, what? And he's trying to save the day, and you're like, I didn't think we were doing that. I don't know. It's a poor analogy, but I guess my point, my underlying point that I want to wrap up on is, I think the film does a great job of what it's trying to achieve, but it's limited a little bit by playing it a little safe and not going, like, it's earnest, but it's not earnest enough in
Right.
its execution of those ideas, and I would love to see more of that. I'm excited to see what they do next, and that is something I have not said about DC before.
No.
Because this, for me, inspired faith that they can just go, we
Wait,
need to tell a good story.
Aren't they doing another Suicide Squad?
It's a reboot, but it's not a reboot because it has the same actors, and it's by James Gunn.
Yeah, James Gunn. They
he's
hired
in.
James Gunn.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
post-show.
let's talk about that in the post show. You gonna have any recommendations for this week? What have you guys been catching up on? What you've been watching, reading,
I started
listening to?
playing Pokemon Crystal again. Well, for the first time, really.
Are you
just-
playing? Are you playing the actual game on a Game Boy? What do you have,
yes,
many Game
the
Boys?
original.
Okay.
The
How does it
original.
hold up to our hacked ROM Liquid Crystal? Not as good, hey.
It's weird. All of the like stuff that's in Liquid Crystal that I was like, oh, this is just in because this is a ROM hack of Fire Red and Leaf. It's like, no, it's in the original game.
Yeah, a lot
It's
of it is.
surprisingly advanced.
Yeah.
For a Game Boy Color.
Okay,
game.
I'm not sure if that counts as a recommendation though, because that game is as old as dirt.
Fucking Evangelion, Neon Genesis
Oh, yeah,
You've
Evangelion.
been
recommend that
watching
every
that.
week.
I'm gonna because we're still watching it. What have we watched recently? Pretty much all my media consumption happens with Laura.
Yeah, we rewatched Pride and Prejudice. the
You rewatched
BBC
it?
ser-
So. No.
BBC
That was
series.
no. I've
Okay.
already recommended.
We've
that.
talked about that before.
I talked about that.
Um,
Yeah. You rewatched it.
So
watched
basically,
it.
you guys have nothing new for. Okay, that's fine.
Well, I mean, I've been listening to the Persona 5 soundtrack because
Yeah, that's a good record. I like
it's
that.
great.
I like that. Yep.
Yeah, because Joker just came out for
Right.
for Smash.
for
Yeah.
Smash,
Uh,
so
My
Oh, for
only
sure.
my only recommendation is that
Oh,
I've.
thank God you've only got one this time.
It's just the one. It's going to be more than one. I just finished.
Absolutely. You'll remember.
I just
things.
finished Supermarket, which is Logic's book, Bobby Hall. It's fucking great. It's really weird. It's just
Yeah.
like a sci-fi romance thing. It's really cool and interesting. I highly recommend it. One of the weirdest books I've read in a long time. Otherwise, I've been peeping like an alarming amount of Funhouse lately.
Of course, you have two of them. Of course you had more
I
than
just said
one.
it was going to be more than one.
Ah.
So go check out Funhouse on YouTube. They're a good lot, and some of my favorite boys from Inside Gaming. That's it.
Okay, two. Only two. All right.
Otherwise, where can people find us?
Facebook,
At DCMWorks Social.
YouTube,
YouTube.com/DCMWorks.
Twitter,
At DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. Our subscriptions start at $3 a month. You get access to everything at $3. You can step it up to $6 to get some exclusive rewards and discounts on merchandise and my book. You get access to over 65 plus episodes of behind the scenes content, as well as all kinds of exclusive early access to videos, Patreon exclusive video essays. You can actually watch, the only place you can watch my video essay on Spider-Man Homecoming is if you are a Patreon, so check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, you also get to see our post show, which if you're watching live, we're about to do. The only way to see it is to watch the show live or subscribe to us on Patreon. So if you're watching live, stick around. If you're a Patreon, thanks for hanging out. If you're listening to this now and you want to get 20 extra minutes of us goofing around, responding to comments, reading extra stuff, having just a good old chinwag, that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, if you want to follow us individually, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie.
I'm at Literal Citrus.
I'm at Laura Ducky B.
And we'll see you guys next week.